Hi friends, welcome to another episode of Soaring Through Chaos. And the reason we do this is because we are in the midst of unprecedented chaos, at least in my lifetime. We are in the midst of a so-called pandemic. Some people say it's not there. Some people say it's really not a pandemic, and many people are dying of a virus that is, creating pneumonia, but it's not a pandemic. But the reality is people are losing lives. There are difficulties, especially in the healthcare sector. It's difficult to get any doctor's attention because so many of them are burdened right now. Jobs are being lost at an unprecedented rate, and we don't know how long this whole thing is going to be. But amid all this, I see a lot of hope. There are community builders. These are the times that we have to find our way to be calm again. And that's why I'm calling upon people who are helping build community or helping doing something on the road less taken and are helping supporting this thing so that we can learn from each other. Among them is Darshana Nadkarni. Darshana, how are you?
I'm good, Shankar. How are you?
Good, good. And I guess we've known each other almost 25 plus years. And what I really admire about you is that no matter what you're going through personally, you kind of made it a point to be there for people. So can you tell us about your life, how you became Darshana, the person who's there for people? No matter how your life is, you're always there for people or there for the community.
I don't know how much I'm there for people, but at some point, I wanted to give back. And what I realized is that one of my skills and also passion is in writing. And so I decided that the way I can give back is to really what I would like to do and what I have been doing is to kind of showcase and bring into social media and promote the local arts. So all the local theaters in Silicon Valley, as well as local companies, local technologies, conferences, and so on. So that's a small little way in which I kind of try to give back a little bit.
And I've noticed that you've always been involved in community work, social work, and you don't disengage. You're always there. You participate and all that, which is helpful to people. I've known you for many years, and if I have to know about, for example, I was recently asking about travel, and sure enough, I get messages from people like you, and I'm grateful. So what was your childhood like? Were you always this person who would share yourself, express yourself, or did you go through changes in your life which made you who you are today?
I will say that I have always been somewhat of an extrovert. From my early childhood, I spent my early childhood in Ethiopia. And in Ethiopia, in my school, I often was the monitor in the class, and I always wanted to make sure that kids behaved when the teacher went out of the classroom. And so I sort of was somewhat of an extrovert from the very beginning.
Wow, I'm going to be heading to Africa for the first time. So I'm looking forward to maybe connecting with your friends if there are any left in Ethiopia.
So you're going to Ethiopia?
Eastern Africa, yeah, starting from Sudan all the way to South Africa. So it's going to be interesting through the pandemic. Let's see. Once things stabilize a little bit. That's interesting. So you were an extrovert and you continued to be one. You have been expressive and so on. And
in fact, I'll tell you one small incident. A friend of mine had posted on Facebook recently that when you are going through the lockdown, think also of your extrovert friends because they are probably having it much more difficult and something like that. So I wrote over there that your extrovert friend is me. So.
That's true. Yeah, my introverted friends worry about how is Shankar doing, and I'm like, yeah. I found Zoom. I'm zooming in and zooming out.
Yes.
So I know you've written poetry and you've written all kinds of, critiques of movies, dramas, and all that. Is there something you can share? Is there anything that particularly stands out that you'd like to share with us? It's easy to share on Zoom.
I would love to, except that I don't remember anything memorized.
So, Darshana, what are the themes that you write about?
Oh God, I write about a whole lot of things. On my blog, I have a lot of categories and I write about a whole bunch of things, starting with technology, health-focused technologies. So in technology and high tech, I've written about like blockchain and fintech, blockchain, DevOps, all kinds of things like that. And then I write about health technologies. And after that, I write about all the live theaters. I write theater reviews, and all the Bay Area theaters, I get complimentary tickets for their opening nights because I write theater reviews. So I used to write a lot of theater reviews, and then my own, I write movie reviews, poems, musings on different happenings. And then I also write book reviews. And then I go for all the conferences and write reviews as well. So a lot
So
of,
what
and
would you
then I
like to
write
share with us
infographics.
today? You are very versatile. What would you like to share with us today?
So if we were talking about Corona, like lockdown a little bit earlier, right? And that a lot of people go through like a difficult time. And one of the things was like some of my friends told me, wow, because they always saw me on Facebook and other media. I'm active on all the social media because I promote all of these conferences, theaters, etc. And so uh, oftentimes my friends asked me, oh my God, your life came to a grinding halt because I was out in so many places. In a way, yes, but the thing is, my life was not just about being out there. My life was inside because I loved so many things and I had interest in so many things. So my life did not come to a grinding halt. And I always found all these things to occupy and get me interested in. In fact, I do have a tendency to brood at times, but when I start brooding, I sort of look at the clock and I say, okay, let me give 5 minutes to this, and then I have to do something else. And then immediately I get immersed into something else because I have so many interests. So I write about a whole bunch of things and I'll be happy to read to you. One of the things I do write often is if some tragedy happens, then I brood about that, and that it disturbs me a little bit until I get it out on paper in some fashion. So I write a lot, like I write a lot of poems. I wrote when Nirbhaya's tragedy happened in India, when Sandy Hook tragedy happened in US, when the 20 kids were killed by terrorists in Pakistan. So during, especially if something happens to the kids, in fact, when the refugee issue happened and the kids in cages thing happened, I wrote consistently for 5 days on my blog because I was like, I just had so many things to say. So I write a lot. I'll be happy to read to you a poem I wrote when Nirbhaya's tragedy happened. It's a little sad, but I think it sort of ends on a good note. The poem is Maya Angelou calls me a phenomenal woman. Maya Angelou calls me a phenomenal woman. I stand tall, side by side with a man. Yet, I am powerless in face of violence. There, in place of my wit, all I had was silence. When my life turned upside down, in one bus ride across the town, it took 6 brute men to silence me for the night. When the darkness ended and I saw the light, I want to live, I said, fiercely determined. I want to see the culprits punished. I may be beaten, lost my intestines, but I have guts to nail those swines. With or without you, I shall fight. My confidence doesn't waver, not slight. Though I'm fighting fever and infections, I haven't lost my spirit. I'm telling you in my letters. Will you stand with me? for the sake of all our sisters, else evil will infect everything like blisters. I have love in my heart to win the world over. I have anger in my heart to make the gods cower. I also have forbearance and patience. I have endured for centuries this nonsense. Now I ask you, my brothers, will you stand with me? Will you speak for me? Now I ask you, my brothers, will you speak for me against evil? Speak on behalf of me. Speak with me.
Wow. I have no words, but it brings back the memories of what happened during the gang rape of Nirbhaya. And
Yes.
even today, the memory lingers on because it took so long to even, it is so difficult to take action given the complications in the case.
It reminded me then that what Martin Luther King had said about, and that thing that also came up during Black Lives Matter movement was that it's when white people will stand up and speak for the Black people that things will start to change. And I feel that in India, when men will stand up and speak for women, that things will start changing. So
And in
that's what.
some ways, it's starting, but it's a slow start. It is
Yes,
starting. There's no question about
indeed
that.
it is.
And
Yes,
even in the
definitely.
villages, there are I heard of this grandfather who allowed his wife to sit with him on that what do you call bark, khatla,
Very nice.
which is very rare. Usually she sits along with the children down on the floor and he sits on top and he talks to them. And the term condescending probably came that way. But things
No,
are changing even in
absolutely.
the
I
villages.
think things are changing, absolutely, which is very heartwarming. Unfortunately, these incidences still happen, a lot of rape cases and all of that. So we still have a little bit of a journey to.
Yeah, my mother was a victim, so I have a good idea how bad things can be. And for those who think that this is a problem only of women, no, we are the children of those women. So we get affected. The collective consciousness gets
Absolutely.
affected.
I'm so sorry to hear that, Shankar, but
Yeah,
yeah,
but
absolutely.
on a positive note, that's what drove me towards this, what I'm doing now. So yeah,
Yes,
there's something good that came out of it. But should somebody suffer for 40 years so that something good comes out of it? It's like those
absolutely.
kids
We
in
need to
cages,
change before that.
Yeah.
Definitely. In fact, it reminds me of a movie that I saw called Journey Through Her Smile or something. And it was really not about the victim herself, but her mother in that case. Because as you said, that it's not just the victim, but everybody around the victim also suffers in their own way.
Yeah, we give too much importance to the physical facts. That's where we are so obsessed with the physicality of it. We don't seem to even bother about feelings and emotions in
I
many
mean, I
cases.
don't want to undermine the fact that physical aspect of abuse is also extremely hurtful, but we need to really also go beyond and look at the emotional uh, thing that takes a hold over us and lingers on for so long
That
beyond the
reminds
physical.
me, you've written quite a bit about feelings, emotions, and healing and things like that. Is that something you can read from that?
So one thing I can share is sometimes I have sometimes I've written poem about like people. If I find somebody funny or if I find somebody annoying, I have written, they wouldn't know it's about them, but I've written poems about people. And I can share a poem that I wrote when my daughter once, oh my God, she killed me. But anyway, when my daughter once said, Mom, and I'm like, please don't speak like that, use a proper tone. So, so here it is. I'm just sharing the start of it. My adorable daughter today said with some annoyance, Mom, and I said, please say it without the emphasis. She said again, Mom, are you mad? You are mad not just about the content, but about the tone? I said calmly, look at my tone, not just the content. I'm not mad. So here is a little poem. You decide what is more important, content or the tone in communication. Mom says, it's not just the quality of the content. It's about the tone in what is meant. For in addressing mom, when O is stressed, trouble begins, mom's not impressed. If content is the king, tone is the queen. From the tone, much is derived and a lot seen. Are you frivolous or serious? Casual or formal? Sweet or stuffy? Tone says it all. Content shows the art and skill or lack of it. Tone comes from attitude, good, bad, or indifferent. Content isn't unimportant, but tone is essential. You should know how what you say makes others feel. You should know how what you say makes others feel.
So true, so true. And, it's like I grew up as an engineer, or I kind of was at a place where there was so much importance given to being rational. People forgot that underneath all that rationality were feelings. And I remember
Exactly.
once arguing, there were people who even argued that there is no such thing as love. It's all fake. We need something and we want it, and that's it. And I said, have you ever tried telling your mother that I have this thought that I love you? Try saying that. I have this thought that I love you. And I have this need for food and this and that. And thank you for providing. That's all I care for. But it's hard for people to understand that underneath all that logic, we are not robots.
Yeah, it's easy to focus on one or the other instead of remembering that really it's a balance of both the emotional aspect of what makes you you and how you relate with other people, and the rational aspect. And I don't think that anyone can be more important than the other. It's really the balance of the two.
Like right now in the pandemic, so many people are losing jobs, so many people are losing life or are getting sick. Rationally speaking, we can just say, hey, it's only 0.5%, 1%, 5%. What's the big deal? Even if my own son or daughter gets sick, winner takes all, or that's how the system is. But that's not how we feel. As long as it's somebody unknown, we don't seem to care. But if it's somebody we know, suddenly the whole tone changes. We
Because
feel
then
the
the
pain.
statistics don't matter when it comes to your own people.
If this person is in trouble, it doesn't matter what the percentage of people who are in trouble.
Absolutely.
So, so yeah. So what do you think is happening with the current situation? How can people find? I don't see. I see you're still very balanced through this whole 6 months. We talked a couple of times during this pandemic. How are you able to keep your poise, and how do you think is it possible for everyone to keep their poise through these challenging times?
Well, I think each person has to find the things that uplift and engage them. And fortunately for me, there are a lot of things that I find uplifting and engaging, and the community has come together in a nice way with the help of Zoom and all that. For example, as I said, I was engaged in many groups and activities, so there are a lot of Zoom events. I'm not enjoying watching plays on Zoom as I used to watch live theater, but then I do watch them sometimes. But then we do book club on Zoom. Our Gujarati literature group meets on Zoom, and we share our creative writings and poetry and all of that. Our biotech device group, which is the biotech and medical device focused networking group, we meet on Zoom every week. And so there are a lot of things that engage me and I'm sure that everybody has interests and activities that engage them. And in addition to that, the other thing that I find personally extremely important is that I like to stay physically active. I think that is very, very important when you are in a lockdown situation. I saw a lot of jokes, and maybe there is a tendency for people to sort of focus on eating and sharing food, and maybe at home and eating, and I understand that, but I think it's important that we also focus on being active and remaining fit. And fortunately, unlike in India, people in the US have a lot of space around them to be active. And I do a lot of Zumba classes on Zoom, and then we have recently started doing some Zumba classes in the park, and then relentlessly I walk. The first 2 months of the lockdown, I really walked a lot. If I tell you, you probably won't believe, but I did 30,000 steps almost every day.
Wow. Within the house or in the vicinity?
So I walk 1 hour in the morning outside, and then I walked all day at home because I was on Zoom sessions a lot, and every Zoom session I only attended it, so I did not go with my photo and picture and everything, but I sort of took it on my phone, and I walked up and down listening to Zoom sessions. So I walked a lot. I
Yeah.
think that's how I will remember my lockdown, walking.
I resumed daily dancing, and then when I shaved, people started calling me names like Zoom Baba, Zoom Baba, Zoom Baba.
And I do remember you and Seema a lot. You guys love to. In fact, Seema was here, and so she called me, and we met up. And of course, we met outside because of all Corona thing going on. But anyway, we spent the time walking also. So,
Oh, that's
so
nice. She
yeah,
loves that. In fact,
yes.
one of the things that, as you said it correctly, it's not just the person who's affected, but even their families get affected. Right now, there are a lot of people who are at risk, like healthcare professionals. And not only they, but even their friends and family are worried, rightfully so. So I know in your own case, that was a concern for you. How are you taking it? That there are people that you know close who are, in the healthcare tending to potentially corona positive, COVID positive patients.
So, of course, I didn't deal with anybody COVID positive very close to me, but my daughter works with COVID patients, and that was highly unnerving, especially at the beginning of the pandemic when we knew so little, and all the horrible stories were coming out. So I was extremely concerned, and I told her that she can take a break or whatever. And then she said, no, I can't. I have a responsibility. And she said that my older colleagues are much more vulnerable, so I have a responsibility to be there. And I realized and understood that that was the calling, and I needed to just be there, be supportive. And I prayed for her. That is all I could do. Of course, I did cook and give her food and all that, but mostly prayed for her to be safe and
Yeah, and it's
secure.
it's so true that right now many of the warriors are those who are supporting community, those who are actually in the trenches, supporting people who are not doing well physically, emotionally, firefighting, real firefighting in the California fires, and through all the challenges. I mean, so we
Absolutely.
have to
I
salute
feel
all of them
we
and their families.
Yeah, absolutely, Shankar. I feel that we owe so much to all these people who are really carrying the community on their backs right now. The firefighters, the healthcare people, all of them, and really the community owes so much. And that just brings me to my next point that I just would like to mention, is that I'm passionate about curbing conspiracies. There's so much conspiracy theories against doctors, against scientists. I don't understand how people are assuming they will get back to normal if it is not for our scientists, if it is not for our engineers, if it's not for even our essential workers who are keeping things going meanwhile. So I feel very strongly about it, and I try to be in the social media and kind of focus on sharing the correct information.
Yeah, it's really absurd because it's like, hurting the people who are helping you the most right now.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted this pandemic. Nobody wanted even, let's say we don't call it a pandemic. Still, a lot of people are dying. A lot of people are hurting. And I personally know 50 who have passed away in the last 3 months, including when I was in Mexico. Out of 10 people who took care of me, 3 of them had family members who either died or got really sick. Even the woman who
And
cooked
this
for
was
me,
in
she
Mexico?
was really sick for a month.
And this was in Mexico?
In Mexico, yeah, yeah, that was in the early days of the pandemic, from I would say from March to June, and the country, the president of the country was in denial, saying there is nothing
I
going
know.
on.
Yeah, you were caught literally between the three countries, India, US, and Brazil, which had the worst.
Mexico, that's true though. I
And
was, and
Mexico.
I had to learn Spanish really fast, and I had to learn cooking, which was a good thing. So before I knew it, I'm like going away, going around doing groceries and speaking in Spanish. But that's what happens, right? It is, I believe it is possible to grow if we can accept the reality as it is. In what ways have you
True,
grown through
actually.
these difficult times
How have I grown?
over the
Is that the
last six
question?
months? Yes.
Uh, I don't know. Like you, one of the things I have been trying to learn is a language. So I have been trying to learn Urdu, and I think I have picked up quite a sizable vocabulary in Urdu. So that's one of the things I've been trying to do. And apart from that, really just being engaged in my work. My work is continuing, the recruitment work as well as the online training work. And then I participate on all these Zoom
My Urdu
activities.
improved a lot in the last from April to June also, and the reason is because I was getting bored, and I was barely able to speak Spanish right in the early days. So a friend invited me to teach English to those who speak Urdu and Arabic and barely know English, because there are online classes. So we did a language exchange. They would speak to me in Urdu and I would speak in English, and then we would switch and everything,
That's
including,
great.
yeah, and there are apps that help you to do that. There's an app called Tandem where you can actually
Oh,
connect with people who are speaking Urdu and help them to learn English, and they will help you to learn Urdu, and you switch languages. That's one of the most effective
oh.
ways of learning, the way kids talk to each other.
So I have not used any apps. I started watching some serials and I started
Yeah.
picking up that way. I would stop at each word and write it down. So I started learning that way. And then my friend gave me a wonderful book. So that helped a lot. And then I have a friend who writes ghazals. And so most evenings we spend a few minutes and we pick up some famous ghazals and we recite it. And it's nice to go through it with her because she knows many words, much more than
Oh,
me.
fantastic. Yeah.
Occasionally, both of us don't know, and then we look at the vocabulary, but most often she knows many words. So it's really nice to go through the ghazals because I want to learn Urdu in the context of the ghazals. So
Poetry
it's
and
been really.
yeah, dastan and all that. In fact, what we don't want to do is guzzle it down our throat, right? We want to really go through the nuances. It's such a very
Exactly.
amazing language, and the expression is so beautiful. And I think
Yes.
from Arabic to Persian to Urdu, there's a rich tradition of deeply meaningful poetry with the Sufi tradition and many other traditions over there.
Oh, also I wrote and performed a couple of plays as well. So that's another thing I did. I mean, I really want to do this long play in English, but I haven't done it yet. But I wrote a couple of plays in Gujarati, and then we performed them. One of the plays we actually performed. My friends came in my backyard. So we did it in the backyard. We stood at distance, and the play was called Gossip, and it was about women gossiping from across the different buildings during a lockdown in India. So we we could stay apart and we could gossip that way. So
I saw that. I think Seema, somebody forwarded it to me. Is that something you can share? Maybe a little bit of it? It'll be so funny.
yeah,
Panchat gossip, is that the one?
yeah, that's the one.
Okay, I'm going to play it now.
દર્શના અને પાત્ર ભજવનાર છે દર્શના નાડકરની, સપનાબેન વિજાપુરા અને શરીફભાઈ વિજાપુરા.
કોરોના વાયરસના લોકડાઉનમાં કેવા કૌભાંડ થાય છે તે સાંભળો.
એક બિલ્ડિંગમાંથી બીજા બિલ્ડિંગમાં સંભળાય તેમ, અરે ઓ સપનાબેન, કેમ છો? ક્યારેક બારીએ તો દેખાવ, નહીતર અમને ચિંતા થાય ને.
હા, મજામાં છીએ. શું કરીએ, ખાઈ પીને ઝાડા થવાનું. મોદીજી આવીને કહે છે, નમસ્તે મેરે હાથીઓ.
અરે સપનાબેન, હું તો કંટાળી ગઈ છું. કઈ નહીં તો ચોવટ કરવા તો મળતું તું, કઈક તો સમય પસાર થાય, પણ હમણાં તો એ નથી. પણ હું તો તમારી જ રાહ જોતી હતી. મેં કીધું કે બારીએ દેખાય તો એને વાત કરું.
એમ? એવા તો શું સમાચાર છે?
અરે સપનાબેન, વાત ન પૂછો. આવા કપરા કાળમાં લોકોને શાંતિ નથી. પેલા જગુભાઈ છે ને, એમના પત્નીને રાજુભાઈ હારે કઈક ચાલે છે.
શું વાત કરો છો? હોય નહીં.
અરે છે જ ને. આ કોરોના વાયરસ ટાણે મેં બેયને બધ ભરતા જોયા હતા ગઈકાલે સાંજે 7:30 આસપાસ.
પણ હમણાં તો વહેલું અંધારું થઈ જાય છે. તમને ખાતરી છે કે એ જ બે જણા હતા?
અરે જગ્ગુભાઈના ઘર પછવાડે તેમના મિસિસ ઝાડને પાણી આપતા હતા ને કંઈક કામ કરતા હતા. હું ઊભી ઊભી જોયા કરતી હતી. એવામાં જોતામાં અંધારું થઈ ગયું ને છુપાતું કોક આવ્યું ને એમણે બધ ભરી.
તો એમ કેમ કહેવાય કે રાજુભાઈ જ હતા, બીજું કોઈ પણ હોઈ શકે?
અરે વાત એમ છે કે કોરોના વાયરસનું લોકડાઉન આવવાનું હતું ને એ પહેલા મેં તેમને બંનેને ગલીના નાકે ઊભા ઊભા વાત કરતા જોયા હતા ને મેં રાજુભાઈને કહેતા સાંભળ્યા હતા કે સાંજે ફોન કરજો, ત્યારે મિસિસ ઘરે નહીં હોય, બાબાને લઈને ગઈ હશે, ત્યારે શાંતિથી વાત થશે. લ્યો બોલો, કેવો જમાનો આવ્યો છે.
પણ લોકડાઉનમાં તો એકબીજાને મળાય જ નહીં ને.
અરે સપનાબેન,
Wow, that was so cute. That was really, really cute. Given how much is changing, where do you see the world going? I mean, do you see something different? People talk about this new normal. Are you seeing any emergence of a new normal, or are we going to go back to where we were before?
I think we will never go back to where we were before. It's like people say that when you know something, you cannot not know it. And when we have made a progress in a different direction, we will never go back to the way we were before. A lot of things have permanently changed and will change. One of the things I was thinking that world is already changing, even before this thing happened, was that really the boundaries, the physical boundaries of the world are somewhat artificial. World is becoming very global. And now this coronavirus really drove that point home. That world is so much more global. And we will have to think of that when we think of the problems. Look at coronavirus as a problem. It's a world problem, right? It's not India's problem or California's problem or any of that. Maybe that to some extent it's true, but it's a world problem. And the same way, we will have to think about refugee issues, we will have to think about climate issues, water scarcity, all of those issues we will have to think about in terms of global. And so a lot of things, I think, are going to start establishing a new normal. It will never be going back to the same thing.
True, that's true. And how about our values? I mean, are we going to still stick with the same old values, saying my comfort, my money, my priorities? Do you see actual changes happening? Because those things take a lot longer. Do you see a change in
Absolutely.
attitude, for example, happening in this shorter duration, 6 months, maybe a few years?
Yeah, absolutely. I do see the change. And I also think that that change will not be overnight and will not be like tomorrow. I mean, that change will continue to unravel for at least next couple of years until we start seeing how people have changed. But I do see that people have really changed during this lockdown. For one thing, it gave people a lot of time for inner reflection that we really don't take when we are caught up in the hustle and bustle of day-to-day life. Secondly, it gave people a lot of time to focus on their families, their children, their close relationships, all of that, as opposed to large groups of people, for instance. Although large groups of people also were brought home through Zoom, but people also got time to focus about their close personal relationships. Thirdly, it really put into perspective that material wealth is only so much important. What can you do? You have I have closet full of clothes and so many shoes, but I have only used I have 3 pairs of walking shoes actually. But anyways, I've only used my 3 pairs of walking shoes. I have hardly used any other shoes. So yeah, what do you do with all that material wealth either? So I think people are changing, people will continue to change, and it definitely has brought a lot of inner change in people and a lot of external change in life.
And do you have any suggestions for people on how they can make the most of this time? You already mentioned several things. Is there anything that you may not have mentioned yet?
I feel that just maintaining that balance and taking care of all of those things, taking care of your physical and physical health of you and your loved ones, taking care of mental health and spiritual practice. I mean, I do sometimes yoga, and so taking care of, in some fashion, to take care of your whole human being that we are. Our emotions, mental rationality, all of that, just maintaining that balance is important.
Well, Darshana, it's always nice to catch up with you. This is the first time we did it virtually on Zoom. So yeah, there's so much more that we could be really going inwards. The inward journey is big right now because the outward journey has been kind of curbed a little bit. And as people have said,
if I may, I just want to mention one other point. I think that because of lockdown and because of distancing, many people find a lot of frustration. And so it's easy to erupt. And I think it's important that we give people that benefit of the doubt and give people some space when they feel frustrated and they say things that they might not have otherwise said. And it's important for us to try to not react and take a little pause. I think that's very important. Just want to mention that.
yeah. And in psychological terms, really, we are at a point where we are not driven by rationality, but much more by emotions and the discomfort. I mean, most of us are, to a certain extent or to a large extent, out of our comfort zone. Hardly anybody is happy with the way things are right now. So even smiling takes effort, for instance, right? So these are
Because
the
you're
times.
smiling from behind a mask. Nobody knows you're smiling.
That's true. So yeah, a lot is happening there. Well, again, it's wonderful catching up with you, Darshana. And please stay in touch. And to those who are watching, I would love to hear from you, especially people who have known me for a while over the years. I want to hear about how your road was taken, how your way of life and your engagement in the community is helping you during these times, and how we can all contribute to a happier, more meaningful, more purposeful world. And Darshana, I'm so grateful for all the work you've done, whether it was movie reviews or reviews of upcoming medicines or technologies, or just expressing your outrage, for example, when you saw something unjust or really unfair happening in the world. It's so important that we do this on a regular basis. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, Shankar. I really enjoyed talking with you. Thank you.
And please stay in touch.
Thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you.